everybody, this is Katia Plant Scientist. Welcome to the tomato rainbow. Today we're going to learn about the biological basis of why tomatoes come in this gorgeous rainbow of colors. Let's start at one end of the spectrum and work our way over. This is a green zebra tomato. Did you know that some tomatoes are green when they're ripe? This is because chlorophyll is one of the pigments that you find in tomatoes. This tomato here has a mix of yellow and green markings on it, which shows that it has chlorophyll as well as the yellow pigment lutein. Lutein is a type of carotenoid, and as we'll see with our other tomatoes, carotenoids are what give orange, yellow, and red tomatoes their beautiful colors. Let's take a look at a tomato that's mostly yellow now. This is called a crazy cherry tomato, and as you can see, they're almost purely yellow. So that implies that the main pigment here is the carotenoid called lutein, which is known for its yellow color. Let's take a look at a tomato that's somewhere between yellow and orange, also with a little bit of green. This is called an Uluru ochre tomato, and it has orange, yellow, and even a bit of green. So that means we have lutein, which is yellow, we have chlorophyll, which is green, and we also have orange, which is beta-carotene. So if you want to see more beta-carotene in a tomato, here is the delicious sun gold tomato. It's entirely orange, so that implies that its main pigment is beta-carotene. Let's look at a tomato that combines yellow and orange. This is called a blush tiger. So what we've got here is mostly carotenoid pigments. We can see the yellow carotenoid lutein and the orange carotenoid beta-carotene. Let's go and check out a striped tomato that has a little bit more red in its color. This is a sunrise bumblebee tomato, and look at that beautiful, almost marbled pattern on it. Here we see orange, yellow, and red. So what is red? This is the carotenoid called lycopene. Lycopene is probably the most well-known tomato pigment, and the one that I think most people have probably heard of. Lycopene is the red pigment that gives tomatoes their signature red color. So here's one that we see all the different carotenoids represented in. Now this one here, you may wonder, what is this red pepper doing in here? Well, this is actually a tomato, see? It's a tomato, it's just an elongated tomato, and these are called paste tomatoes. They're much better for cooking with than eating fresh. This is called an orange ray tomato. And here we have this gorgeous stripy pattern that again has a lot of orange, so beta-carotene, and a lot of red, which is our lycopene. Let's move on to another tomato that has a bit of variegation, albeit much more subtle. This is one of my favorite tomato varieties, a great all-rounder called Tigerella, and it does have tiger-like stripes that are orange and red. So this tomato is mostly red, so lycopene, with a bit of orange, which is the carotenoid beta-carotene. So now let's look at the really classic tomato red. You know, you've heard that thing about somebody turning as red as a tomato. Well, this is what they're talking about. This is a Luteola tomato, and it looks like it is just purely lycopene that we see here as a predominant pigment. There might be other carotenoid pigments in here, but lycopene, this bright red, is the predominant one. And we also have the Gardener's Delight tomato, which again is mostly that classic tomato red from the naturally occurring plant pigment lycopene. Now let's take things in a darker direction. These are called chocolate pear tomatoes, and they have a bit of the chlorophyll color and also some darker, almost brownish shades. Although carotenoids are the main tomato pigment, they also contain smaller amounts of anthocyanin. Anthocyanins are the blue and purple and reddish colored pigments that we find in many other plants. Although they do occur in tomatoes, they are not as plentiful as carotenoids, and they occur more in certain varieties than others. So these chocolate pear tomatoes have a touch of anthocyanin and a bit of chlorophyll in them to give their darker reddish hue. It's kind of almost more of a maroon color. So let's meet a darker red tomato. So this one here is the ananas noir, aptly named. The black pineapple is what it means in French, and this tomato has a bit of chlorophyll on top to give it its green shading, which turns into this beautiful kind of burgundy maroon red. So I think what we're looking at here is lycopene mixed with anthocyanin to give it this dark and lovely appearance. But tomatoes can go darker still. Here is a black cherry tomato. It almost looks like an amethyst, doesn't it? So this is a tomato that has a bit more anthocyanin compared to carotenoid in it, so it has this purplish appearance. There are some other tomatoes that are of a similar dark color, like the rosella. So again, we're probably looking at the carotenoid lycopene combined with anthocyanins to give it this beautiful purplish red color. Our darkest tomatoes of all are the tomatoes that look like they've been dipped in ink, but they hide a secret. On the other side, they are red. The story of these tomatoes is that they contain genes from a wild tomato relative called the spiny nightshade, which comes from South America. This plant has evolved genes that produce a lot of anthocyanin, probably as sun protection. Through hybridization of this wild plant with domesticated tomatoes, we get varieties that have this fascinating inky black color on top with red color on the side turned away from the light. So if you want to get this black coloration in your tomatoes, it's very important to grow them in strong sunlight. I bet you're wondering about some of the variegated tomatoes, and you're probably wondering, well, if this is what they look like on the outside, how do they look on the inside? Let's find out. The black tomatoes could be a bit of a disappointment to some. You might be hoping for like black colored flesh inside, but let's see what's really in there. As you'll see, the beauty is skin deep. Inside, the black tomatoes are entirely red or kind of pinkish in the case of these black strawberry tomatoes. So as you can see, it's only a very thin layer of this intense anthocyanin that's on the very outer layer of the tomato epidermis there, the outermost layer of it. So yes, it's just this thin layer of black, and inside it's all red. But I hope that doesn't put you off from growing them, because they are very striking looking and absolutely delicious. So this is black strawberry, and then the one that's just pure red is called the blue bayou tomato. And this one has quite a funny shape to it, almost like a nose. Let's look at some of our other tomatoes up close. Here is the black cherry tomato. So let's chop that one open. And as you can see in the inside, very juicy. It has a bit of the green chlorophyll color around the seeds, but the rest of it is this lovely, rich amethyst purple. So just so you know, the amethyst purple color is on the inside as well as the outside. I bet you're curious about the variegated tomatoes. Let's take the beautiful sunrise bumblebee. So what makes a tomato variegated? Well, plant biologists are still trying to figure that one out by studying the genetics of these tomatoes. We do have a clue that certain genes may be switched on and off. These genes control things like the accumulation of pigments and how chloroplasts, which are the subcellular structure in a plant cell that contains all the green chlorophyll, they turn into chromoplasts as the tomato ripens. So that's why we see the shift from green to red or to whatever the ripe color is of a tomato. It's chloroplasts turning into chromoplasts. So it's thought that the different areas with different colors show genes being switched on and off so that there is a variation and a variegation of pigment accumulation in the tomato. So when we cut one of these open, you can see that the variegation is also in the inside. See how it's kind of accumulated here with these red patches, and it kind of goes into the part of the tomato there. So yes, it seems that the variegation is also in the inside as well as the outside of the tomato. Thank you so much for joining me on this rainbow tour of tomatoes. I hope this inspires you to stay curious about plants and eat a rainbow full of color and flavor. Thank you so much for joining me, and stay curious about plants, everyone.